Okay, well, I've been doing a spot of read the good old kanji. Sunday, about 7:45, I was hoping to Skype the missus, but she seems to be outside enjoying the sun, so I may as well do the same for a while. So I'll take the good old GoldList with me. This is a Czech GoldList, and I'll go out for a walk. I've got to make sure that I take the key with me, otherwise it snaps shut and can never be opened again. So here we go. I did my washing, by the way. It's all hanging up there now. I'll leave that open. Sometimes I just like to go for a walk with the GoldList. I'll show you how things look as I leave the flat. There's extra security here. They do usually, but this time they didn't bother closing it properly. Doing that. I always close it myself, and these folk can't be bothered to do likewise, compromising my jolly security. I don't know. That's not very nice, is it? There we go. Right, three lifts I've got. And they're all crazy and very temperamental. I'm quite loosely dressed as a Sunday and that. That's the view down from these big things. All the way down. So if I can see. Oh, this one can take. Okay. I don't know why so many of these lift buttons have got holes in them. And some of them are completely chewed up. Zircalne Fabrica. This is the state of play in this lift. It's not fantastic. Because I'm not really straightened up at all, am I? A bit flamboyant, that corner. Maybe that's a bit too overdoing it a bit. Perhaps I'll do another button up. Don't want to look like some kind of I don't know what. That's not the way, is it? Let me sort this out. It's a bit more like it, a bit more reasonable. I'm just taking the GoldList for a walk in the sun. Dobry wieczór. Thankfully you can walk around talking, you see. In one of things, some people don't think you're a nutcase, they just think you've got a fancy phone. Thought I might go up this way for a change. Every day I go out that way, but I don't very often. Well, this is probably the first time I've actually walked up this way. I've walked in this way, but I haven't walked up this way. Some nice hollyhocks here. They do take such such care over their gardens in the summer, and they put some flowers out. Summer's not long, of course, in Russia. Summer's lease, as the bard said, hath all too short a date. And there's a squashed can of Heinz baked beans. He didn't say that in the sonnet, but I just thought I'd add that in because there is one there. Yeah. What are they? Pelargoniums? I'm not a big one for annual plants, you know. I don't know an awful lot about them. These are much more my style. I think the stuff that comes back year in, year out. Perennials. I used to work with a guy called Perenni. He was a Hungarian. Perenni. George Perenni was in BDO. And he was a perennial. He was a perennial pain in the butt. He's probably dead now, so I can say it. Yeah, he was one of these old style, very obstreperous people that you sometimes get in that generation in Eastern Europe. There's fewer and fewer of them. The younger generation seem to have reacted against that style and are much more can-do and helpful. there is a certain generation in Eastern Europe which is now pretty much hovering around retirement or past retirement age, which is an absolute pain in the neck. They're the people that grew up under communism, and being able to say yes to a client is completely strange notion to them. So I'm going to be seeing some things which I haven't really seen before. Decided to go out this way just to do that. And then when I get to a point where I'm going to have a break, sit down somewhere and have a break, then I'll do some gold listing. That's 25 or so. And then it's nice and dry, you see, it's lovely, the sky is nice. What do you think of these? They're quite dramatic in a way, they don't look fantastic, but they're a bit scrappy, but they're on the outside. On the inside they're perfectly okay. I mean, I've got no complaints at all about my flat on the inside. The outside, that one there looks much nicer, but I don't care really, because once you get in, it's just a moment. Oh, there we go, there's the telly tower dramatically looming out of there. Once you get past that, you know, the staircase and the pong and that, which I didn't really point out coming out because I forgot about it. Today the rubbish chute was completely blocked, and but once you get past those few seconds of unpleasantness and you're down on the ground floor, you're coming outside and you're walking along, it's alright. And once of course you get into it and you're inside, then that's also perfectly except once you get inside the flat, it's perfectly nice. You know, I didn't have such a nice flat in Prague and I still was okay with it. This is far, far nicer than the one I had in Prague. So clearly these new ones look better on the outside, and they've got a certain level of security that I don't have. For example, if I had a car, it would be nicer to be here, but the main reason for not wanting to bring a car to Moscow is for the sake, obviously, of losing weight. I know that winter is not quite such a nice time for walking longer distances. I mean, the distance to my office is 2.5 kilometres going the shortest route, and quite frankly, as long as you're dressed properly, you can do that twice a day and still keep up a reasonable walking, because you can walk faster to keep warmer, and then it's like a half hour, and half an hour, that's not long enough for your feet to get all frozen, even if you're not wearing particularly warm shoes, which I don't intend to go for particularly warm. I don't intend to double up socks and that, because then all day long you're sat in double socks. It's not nice. Either that or you go through the rigmarole of changing them and changing back into them, and I just can't be bothered with it. Oh, there's an impromptu park. I've got a zebra. I mean, zebra crossing. Obviously I don't actually own an exotic horse. That would be quite nice, but only if I had the land to put it on. I'm not sure how well it would like the Russian climate, and I don't have any land here, that's for sure. If I do buy land, it probably won't be here. Yeah, so that's worth. I wasn't actually planning on going down into this, but it's kind of looks very inviting, and I hadn't seen it before, so I've kind of got drawn to it. There's the telly tower up there through the trees there. It's a nice one. So I had the pleasure today of going to a new church for the first time in the morning. That was very nice. I really was very happy, and thanks to Ruth for introducing me there, Ruth Deacon, who's the daughter of one of the deacons of Alexandra Road, where I was converted that long time ago. Philip Deacon wasn't there then, but he is now. He's come over from Watford, and I met him while I was over there recently in the UK on a brief visit, I went to a Bible study as I was there on a Wednesday, and my ministers when I was converted, his widow spotted me there and said, "Hey, come to the Bible study." I thought, "Oh, yeah, good idea." Came along, and he was taking the Bible study. He took it actually on Ruth, which is the name of his daughter, and he didn't actually know it, but he was reading Ruth at the same time as in the Jewish calendar. They were all, reading Ruth all over the world. Jews all over the world were reading that particular portion of the Bible, and he made a very good exposition of Ruth chapter 1. And everything kind of fell into place. Some other very interesting thing. I'd been fasting, and some very interesting things were going on, and other very interesting things happened that evening. And I was blessed on many levels. And one of the levels that I was blessed on was that he said, "Oh, well, my daughter's in Moscow." I knew that by that time that I was going to Moscow. And he said, "Well, my daughter's in Moscow, and she's to the church," which really she's introduced me to a fantastic church. It's a Korean church. There are two congregations within it. One of them has a service in Korean language because they're Koreans, and the other are Russian Koreans that never really learned Korean. They're ethnically Korean. They try and learn a bit of Korean, but they don't know well enough to actually worship in Korean. So they worship in Russian, and the pastor, he's such a capital guy. I really like the pastor, and the other brethren there, they're fantastic, so friendly, so open, they're perfect. Really, it's one can only go to a church like that in the spirit of worrying that one's own imperfections could spoil it. But really, I'm looking forward to every third Sunday I'll be here, and I'm really looking forward to going to that again and again, because it was really was a blessing to go there. So I'm really pleased about that. I feel very blessed about that, to be able to do that. I hadn't really had Korean on my agenda as a language to learn myself. This is where that tram goes. I've been wondering about that, and now I find out. That's the tram, number 17. This is the tram line, the way that it goes. That's interesting. And that comes up this way. That's obviously Argunovskaya ulica going down there. And here's, oh, blimey, a little bit uneven. That's a Jack Russell, or something like a Jack Russell. Or is it a pug? It's interesting, isn't it? It's a pug, sorry. They say mops in the continent. I had the impression going by on the tram the other day that they'd cleaned this out, and they certainly have. I don't know what they're up to. They're dredging it, but when I came here at first, this was all fine because they had. I could see that there was, like water in this, a nice deep water with plants. I don't know what they think they're up to with it now. Well, that's a pretty good shot of the old telly tower, isn't it? It seems to be a tourist thingy here. There's a whole bunch of people lined up to look at this, but there you go, that's a nice. One time I signed the cheque for a transmitter, not on the top, not above that nice big bulge you see there, just below it. The meter ones are up there, the decimeter ones are down here. I paid for a decimeter transmitter. I mean, I didn't pay for it, I just signed the cheque. Signed the bank draft for it. That's a lot of money, I can tell you. I can't even remember how much, but it's not cheap to put something up there. And yeah, obviously there still is water over there. There's the main TV building, that's like BBC House, the equivalent of Pierwszy Kanal, by the way, which is what it's called. Channel number 1. It used to be called ORT. It was changed to Pierwszy Kanal about 10 years ago. But it's obviously that's the very close to TV. Other TV channels are nearby. Botanicheski is obviously the main cable provider for Moscow, and yeah, you've got your, I think the Sheremetyevo church is over there. We might have a look at that more closely. I'm not really interested so much in walking along. Maybe we'll walk back that side, walk around TV Centre. But this basically, yeah, they've kind of decorated it differently. They didn't have those stripes on it, those coloured stripes when I lived here 10 years ago. It was more monochrome. Okay. It's always having a look around here and see where the tram lines are going. This seems to simply have created a loop here. That looks like a loop. So that's probably the end station for numbers 17, etc., and 11, or whatever they are. They can't go further if it's a loop. A bit of a pity that, because I had visions of using that. I'm up too close. I had visions of using the number 11 and the number 17 to go off on longer jaunts in all directions, but clearly this isn't going to take it very far. Not worth taking it up to here, is it? I'll have to find out how far it goes in the other way. Maybe there's some information here. I'll put this in my pocket. See, so it's Seventeen. It goes to Medvedkova. So it says, здесь нет турникетов, все двери доступны для входа пассажиров. So you can get in to that on any, it's got no turnstile. Turniketov, no turnstiles. You can get in on any door. Turniketov нет. You just have to use it's like Warsaw style, you have to use your ticket. So you have to get on and use your ticket. However, the ticket will show, if you've used one of my Yedini ones, the ones that I get, then basically it will show, and people are looking around at me, behaving like I'm some kind of crazy lunatic, because they can't see the microphone. They can't see what I'm talking to. It looks as though I'm just talking to myself. So I took the camera, put it in my pocket so that they weren't seeing it in front of my mouth. Of course, now it becomes more obvious what I'm doing. If I take the camera back out again and put it in front of my mouth, it becomes obvious that I'm making a film or talking into a phone or something like that. It looks less lunatic, but when they couldn't even see one of those Bluetooth things on my ear, and there's still I'm talking and making a commentary, it kind of, there's the number 11, I don't know where that goes. Oh, that only goes as far as Ostankinos, so that's a really short one. But it's a loop. So number 11 is really rather useless. It's still going backwards and forwards the whole time along there. Number 17 though, that looked like quite a good one. 17 seems to take you right up to the Miedkova, whatever it's called, via Babushkinskaya metro, which effectively means, there we go, this is this Sheremetyevo church. That's also that Sheremetyevo palace that looked good. It looks good when you're looking across the lake. That looks very nice. This, yeah. And the church, and then behind it the gardens, you see, because you've got all the gardens behind. Thank you. Нет, спасибо. So he wanted to become a YouTube star, and I didn't really want to have him on this film at the moment. I don't think there's not as many of them as you might think. You might think that there was, you know, because you get just as many in Warsaw, if not more. Actually, I think I've actually had more. I've sort of had fewer people coming up trying to beg off some money off me in Warsaw than in Moscow, but I really have no time for it. And this is the other good thing: you've got these timings, so that you know how much time you've got to cross. But then it hurries you up with that rather faster peeping at the end there. That's really quite nice, isn't it? Let me give you the close-up there. And the edge there, the porch. It's all very pleasant. I don't really intend to walk inside. It being Sunday, there's a good chance of so there's Teleradia Sit Россия there. So you've got the, like I say down here, you've got ORT. I was going to talk a little bit about ORT before I take my first break and do some gold listing. The first channel, the Russian television, Первый канал, or it used to be called ORT, which is in the building, which is now just in front of us but hidden by the trees. They've got this work going on there. You can see that the lake, as far as this part's concerned, still works, but they've cordoned off part of it so they can dig over on that half of it. Let's show you this from this side. It's quite nice, isn't it? With the black bulbs up there and the nice pink brick with the idols. Well, that's obviously not very nice to have idols, but never mind. If we treat it just as art and don't think of it as something to worship. And there you can see as well the monorail going past the base of the TV tower there. TV tower going right the way up there like that, and the monorail going by. So everything around here looks pretty, pretty developed, I have to say. But they're still doing more, and they're doing some refurbishment of that Sheremetyevo palace. So this is the building up ahead here, which houses the first channel, and obviously I've wandered about in there one or two times. The thing about this TV station is that it's really the biggest. I mean, America doesn't have much by way of public sector TV. I mean, public sector television exists, but most of the networks in American TV, they're kind of commercial networks. The big networks are commercial networks. So a big state television service with all the budget basically paid for under the taxpayer. These are things like, well, the BBC is, of course, the most famous one in the English-speaking world. We all pay a big license fee for that. In the Polish-speaking world, you've got Polish TV or Telewizja Polska, along with Polonia 1 it's all basically state-owned. But of course, Poland's not as big a base as Russia. Russia's obviously a 4 times bigger population base than Russia, so they're, and of course it's a nation of, I've said this before, but the Russians are actually pretty much a nation of television addicts. They really like their TV. They like their internet as well now, but they really like their TV. I mean, this TV tower was the largest, and probably is still the largest freestanding structure, the tallest anyway, in Europe. It still is impressive. It was built in the 70s, 78 I think. Don't get annoyed with me if I'm getting these things wrong, I'm going by memory. Maybe I'll get off the beaten track a little bit and go on to this thing here, although I just hoovered around in my house because when I came in the other day off this walk, I came in rather rapidly because I felt a little bit queasy from something that I'd eaten and needed the toilet quite urgently, and so I didn't even take time to wipe my feet properly, and so I already managed to hoover around to get rid of all of the mud that I left there. But there we are, we're walking at the back of the television, the main TV building. You can see the coloured stripes they've put on it. And yeah, I mean, if you were to compare the two, I hope I'm not doing any injustice, but I mean, like, the German ones are really quite weak. The German public sector ones are fairly weak in my opinion. The BBC's the one that really does good TV. I don't think the Germans really can compete. They haven't got anything to compete with the BBC in my opinion. But if there's a channel on earth that really does compete with the BBC, it's this one. Первый канал России. Of course, the English speaking world, and of course I'm not really getting into the big ones like the Chinese and Korean ones, China, CCTV and Arirang and what have you. They're also big, I'm not denying that, but I kind of don't know much about them. But let's talk about the European world and the American world. I think, for my money, that this is the most impressive television station on earth. Because it actually manages to beam. I mean, it beams, obviously it doesn't beam, it beams to the Russian speaking world. It used to beam all over the Soviet Union, and still all in the ex-Soviet states people watch it. It's high on the menu in Belarus, Ukraine, through the Baltics, anywhere where people still speak Russian. It's high up on the menu of people's channels that they put on onto their TVs. So simultaneously broadcast the programming across the 11 time zones of Russia. Okay, which means effectively that they have got a very big logistics problem, because they have to put these programs out at times that people are going to want to watch them at very different times of the day, and so they have them sent, they pump them across by satellite, uplinking and downlinking across 11 time zones, so that people get to see them in off their local transmitters at the same time of day. And even in Western Europe, they get to see them at times which are turned into local times as well. So it's all done in a big logistics way, and you know, apart from the 150 million Russians that watch it, that get it, it's beamed out to another 100 million Russian speakers around the previous Soviet area, each of which can take it if they want to. I'm going to try going in here. I assume that this is Ostankino Park. I don't know whether there's anything So it stops me filming here. I'm looking at the things that they're offering, whether I can film or not, and it doesn't appear to say, it says you can't light fires, you can't dig up, you can't upset the trees, you can't shoot, you can't cut them, you can't cause disturbance to the birds, you can't light fires, and you can't drive your car in here unless you're supposed to, or ride a motorbike unless you're supposed to. Those are things you can't do. It doesn't say you can't smoke, so presumably people can smoke, which is a bit disappointing. I'd rather have people not being able to smoke or consume alcohol. You're not allowed to leave rubbish. That much is certainly true. It doesn't say you can't smoke per se. So we'll see whether they stop me or charge me money or anything. Obviously, they didn't charge him any money going in there on his bike. That seems to be just a gatehouse. It says that there is video on the park, going on the park. This is going to create some dust, isn't it? This thing coming along here. I'd rather not have that on me, so dirtying my suits, I'll rather get off the way of that, off the beaten track a little bit. I don't really intend to be here for long, but they've got a gate which they can close the gate of, so maybe this isn't the best time to go for a big walk in here, because I need to keep a little view of the time. It's 8:15, is it? I'll check that. I thought it had already been 8:15. No, it is 8:15. Okay. Do I really want to go in here though? That's the question. Do I want to... I'll go back. Oh, I don't really know what to do. Now I'm filming. I'll go back here and go along the main road. I didn't like the way that thing was kicking up all that dust. Yeah, so there it is. You can still see the TV house. And that's what I really wanted to say, of course, because Russians have quite long winters, and it gets very cold in winter, not so nice to go out in the way that people spend all their time outside in the Czech Republic. In Prague, you know, the winters are fairly mild, the summers are fairly mild as well, although today is milder here than it is in Prague. People on Facebook were complaining that it got very muggy in Prague today. Here it's been very nice, I have to say. But next week apparently it's going to hot up here again, which isn't so good. I hope that that's a false alarm, that doesn't actually happen. I can't take the heat too much. 3 weeks ago it was awful. 3 and 4 weeks ago when I was here before, really too hot for me. But the days are shorter now than they were then. And whether August really has the kick about it that July can have, and June, when it really sets its mind to it, whether August really has that potential of getting really ultra hot, I'm not sure. It can be hot, but it's more pleasantly hot, I think. And the days are obviously shorter than they are in June or July. They're starting to, by the end of August, they're starting to get nice and, well, not that nice actually, to feel as though the days are getting shorter. That's not so nice. I like a long day. So I don't really know what I'm doing here. Walking along in here, I'm just basically, it's Sunday, it'll be the end of a week, and on Sunday nights an alarm comes on to tell me to read off my thing that I have for walking. It also hangs with a conveniently impressive looking identifier, which makes me always look a little bit official. And in Russia they love that sort of thing. They don't challenge you too much if you're walking around looking suitably official. That and the more than passing resemblance to Brezhnev means that they treat me with a bit of respect usually. So but as far as parks and what have you go, I'd expected a little bit more by way of like ability to sit at benches and what have you. There doesn't seem to be anything. And right now I feel like actually getting on with that, sitting at a bench and doing 25 words. And it's not letting me really do it, is it? Which is a shame. It's not giving me that option. What are they then? Are they rude beakiers or what? A lot of work was done on Rudbekir here in Russia by Chailakyan of the Soviet Academy of Sciences. He was using Rudbekir to test his views on the Florigen hypothesis. Have I got that right? Is it Florigen or am I remembering it wrong? Any botanists in the audience, please tell me if it's Florigen hypothesis. It's an auxin, like an auxin, but the one that makes the flowering happen. And he discovered that it had to do with day length, Mr. Chailakyan. And how do I know this? Because when I was back at Cambridge, I actually did the translating of those papers from the Russian Academy of Sciences so that Cambridge's botany department, one of their researchers who happened to be my friend and buddy in the Christian Union, could do his, which is why he picked me out of a bunch of other possible translators. Well, there are some toilets here just in case they'd be needed, but they appear to be locked with padlocks, which is not so helpful. I don't want to end up getting caught short again like I did the other day. I'm not really getting much out of coming here past these breeze blocks on this dusty road and then getting very dark in there and no sign of a bench. I don't think I like it. I feel better going back in the other direction. The smell is just the smell of like a building site. You know the smell of a building site? If you've ever worked on a building site, I have. I didn't enjoy it much, largely because of the dustiness of it, which you can always smell, and it's always getting in your lungs. And the other is that you tend to have to do with people who are, you know, hooligans, basically. You tend to have to do with people who their main discussion topic seems to be what happened at the aggravation, at the aggro, you know, at the football match on Saturday, and how they clouted this person, what they did to that person with their elbow. And from my time on building sites seemed to largely be involved me in learning different moves for reacting to being aggroed at or being better at aggroing other people, which I will admit to paying some attention to, because you never know it will come in handy, but it's still not the most edifying topic of conversation. It did come in handy quite one time when my first wife's mother attacked me with a metal basin from behind, and I used one of the moves which these building site characters had taught me what to do in that situation, and the middle of the metal basin came flying out, much to the consternation of my then mother-in-law. Didn't hurt her. but she certainly would have hurt me if she didn't knock that thing on my head. They're all about hitting people on the head in that family. I'm getting hit on the head with a glass bottle by my first wife. Not whether it's a generic thing that they like to pass down from mother to daughter, but still unpleasant. I don't know if I fancy going down there either, really. And a muddy path. I don't feel like it, actually. I don't think there's going to be... what I wanted to do is to come to somewhere with a bit more of a formal garden that would have some benches to be able to sit down and do my GoldList. Took my GoldList for a walk, and the GoldList is wanting some attention, and I don't have the ability to give it any. It's a bit unfair, really. We'll see if I can do something about that. Anyway, my red battery light's flashing, so I'm turning it off anyway. Perhaps turn it back on later. What we've got there is we've got a bunch of owners of the same dog type. They're all huskies. They're all going up in a kind of husky pack into the place I just was. I sat down actually on that bench there, which is actually just a bus bench. No bus actually came during the 20 minutes I sat down there and did my GoldList. And the bit of the GoldListing which I did, for those of you who are interested in GoldListing, was actually a bit where I just prepare words and mark them up for I went over 6 pages, which was 150 at the head list, but I was going from D1 to D2, so that was about 100 words that I went through and marked up from them, about 30, either to bind together or the ones that I remembered absolutely to get rid of. I wasn't too sure that I'm, got more than about 15% in absolute terms, so another 15% I made by binding. And you can have some interesting combinations sometimes that actually show up. Now in Czech I managed to get, there's a special word, ustknut, which is to bite, but only is used, ustknuti is only used for the snake bite. Hadji ustknuti. It's not used from the normal biting of like a dog. Yeah, that would be ukolsat or ukolsnot. Yeah, so this ustknot is only, it's a special word just for being bitten by a snake. And then next to that I had ushni laluchek. Ushni laluchek is actually a word I wouldn't even know what it is in English, which means essentially that's the sort of thing that you'd actually chuck out of a GoldList quite early on, because if you didn't need the word in your own language, why learn it in another? But what it is this thing here. If anybody knows the word for this bit here, it's all hairy in my case, but I keep taking the hairs off, but they keep growing back again. That's the telecentre in all its glory with the tower next to it. Anyhow, yeah, so you can put those together, you can bind them together. What I do now is I say bind these two, and then later on I'll be thinking about how to put together a snake bite on the ear, is it lobe, in order to learn what didn't want to fit in my memory too well as two separate words, maybe combined into a little phrase, But that's not the same as trying to force things in by repetition. It's just using them to combine to make a phrase. That can sometimes put them into the long-term memory in a way that it doesn't otherwise go that easily. So that's a good long-term memory thing to do, the combination thing. Or if it doesn't work, you break the combination another time and do it with a different combination of words. That's a long-term memory trick, not a short-term memory trick. Now you can see quite easily from this side what these stripes are supposed to mean on the building. Yeah, you can see from that. You can see that it's the test card. It's supposed to basically call into mind the colour test card for colour television. Yeah, and then you can see that on this side of the building the things that they've put up there, 2108, and the other parts of the building that they've got there. That's reminiscent of the things that look on the test card that you'll see on the Russian channels when they don't put up the one that we have with that girl with the snail. She's got a kind of, it's a very nice girl in the English one, the BBC one, and she's next to her, she's got this snail, which is a cuddly toy snail, yeah, a big cuddly toy snail basically, and it's a well-known image. Well, that's in Britain, but here they have something like that with that kind of marking on it. So this is what the reason why they put the stripes on the building is to make it look like that the Russian test card. It's equivalent of if we put the picture of that the girl with the and I quite fancied her when I was a little boy. Actually, I looked at her, I thought, there, this is it. This is the sort of thing we want. That's strange, isn't it? Did you see the car go down there? That's not the first car I've seen. It's going around the corner now. Whether you saw that or not, I don't know, but it's got the cross of St Andrews up. Cross of St Andrews. Andrew, not Andrews. The cross of St Andrew on the flag. Anybody know why that might be? Apparently St Andrew, whose cross that is, was the person that first brought Christianity to Slavic lands in the time of the apostles still. So this is the Andrew that got crucified on an X, the same one that's on the Scottish flag, but with different order of colours. He's also accredited with